tell you earlier about Dr. Kiura. One of the things that he does in Kenya and Nairobi is he goes to the slums and he works amongst the poorest of the poor in places that are very, very dangerous. And in order to do so, he cannot wear any suit, because if he walked there in his suit, he would not be accepted, number one, and number two, they'd probably take the suit away. And so he really dresses down, he dresses in really old clothes, and he goes there. And at times he's been stopped by the police because they don't want people to go into those areas because they're so dangerous. And when they discover that he is a pastor going to share the gospel, they warn him against going. They say, don't go, because it's too dangerous for you. Don't go in there. But nonetheless, that's part of the character of a man who is called of God to be about God's business. Let us pray together, and then Brother Kiura will share with us. God our Father.
And I feel blessed to be in my midst. I just feel welcome. You are shaking hands. You are hugging me. That is a lot to me. Number two, your pastor. He has talked more than I can talk of myself. And really, not just talking. I feel the flow of God's love for me. That means a lot to me. And I think it means a lot to him. Thank you, Pastor Ethan, for your love and your welcome and giving me a privilege to share with the dear ones that the Lord has given in your hands to lead them to share the gospel. I want to thank God for a very dear family to my life and my family in Kenya and what we are doing. And I think God is clever. That he decided I should be born in Africa, particularly Kenya. He's clever enough to have brought me to a family where my father was not only polygamous, many wives, but a witch doctor. And also clever enough God is to have made me to be born in such a poor family. As my father tried all the best to practice witchcraft and get something to put on the table, he was kept away because of poverty, struggling to see what he can bring at home. And eventually that kept him away, never to come back. I really tried to feel for my father because he died not a Christian, and I missed him. Never was brought by my father. The short time I was with him, he loved me. My father never stamped me. My mother did. In my growing part of the country, the Muslim modest part of the country, it was difficult for my mother. She walked in the villages, refreshing the sorghum and the millet fields so that she can get something we can eat. It was allowed by the community. But it was the most shameful and the highest degree of helplessness. Most of the time we spent on eating wild fruits and roots. Long story short, God carried me with my mother in such a way that it's a long story, but how God brought me to even go to school. When my father had children, my father has several brothers with his several sons and several daughters. None of those has ever gone to a classroom. None of them know how to read and write. And when I gave my life to Jesus, 1969, I also preached to my mother and she gave her life, 1970, after 1 year. My mother became very prayerful. And through our prayer, the Lord kept on opening small windows of my going to school, elementary school, high school, and to a level where I went to college. In those times, 1970, when I was about